My father shoved me into the fountain at my sister's wedding. Guests erupted in laughter until my secret husband, a man with a name worth billions, walked through the doors. On my sister's wedding night, as I stood drenched in the courtyard fountain, mascara bleeding down my cheeks, a genuine smile touched my lips. I smiled because in precisely 20 minutes, the grand ballroom doors would swing open, and the very family that reveled in my humiliation would finally discover who I had become. The water dripping from my beautiful gown and the mascara painting dark streaks down my face were merely a prelude. I wasn't crying, I was smiling. It was a discreet, knowing smile because, in that moment, they had no clue about the life I led or the man I had married. The whispers, the snickers, and the pointing fingers were all on the verge of being silenced for good. Growing up in the affluent Campbell household in Boston was an exercise in maintaining appearances. Our 5-bedroom colonial on Beacon Hill was a testament to success, a facade of perfection. However, behind those impeccably painted doors, the reality was starkly different. For as long as I can recall, I was the shadow cast by my sister, Isolde. Though 2 years my junior, she was the perpetual center of our universe. My parents, Robert and Patricia Campbell, seemed to have a favorite script, and its title was, "Why Can't You Be More Like Your Sister?" My father, a high-powered corporate attorney, valued public perception above all else. My mother, a former beauty queen who had gracefully transitioned into the role of a socialite, never missed a chance to remind me that I fell short. I would bring home a report card with straight A's, but Isolde would have straight A's plus a roster of impressive extracurriculars. I might win second place in a regional science competition, but that achievement would be completely eclipsed by a minor dance recital Isolde performed in. The criticism was relentless. "Brionna, stand up straight. No one will ever take you seriously with that posture," my mother would chide when I was just 12. Then she'd add brightly, laying a hand on my sister's shoulder, "Isolde just has such natural grace." On my 16th birthday, my father raised a toast. For a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of hope, thinking, maybe this time it's for me. Instead, he announced Isolde's acceptance into a prestigious summer program at Yale. My birthday cake sat forgotten in the kitchen. College offered no reprieve. While I attended Boston University, juggling a part-time job to maintain a 4 GPA, my parents were conspicuously absent from my milestones. Yet they would drive across 3 states to attend every single one of Isolde's performances at Juilliard. At my own college graduation, my mother's first comment was about my choice to major in criminal justice. "Well, at least you're being realistic about your prospects," she said with a tight, unconvincing smile. In the same breath, Isolde was lauded for following her passion with a degree in the arts. This pattern of 1,000 tiny cuts continued into adulthood. Every family vacation was an endurance test, every accomplishment of mine downplayed, every mistake magnified. Something shifted during my 2nd year at the FBI Academy in Quantico. I made a conscious decision to create emotional distance. I stopped sharing the details of my life. I started declining invitations for the holidays. I constructed walls around myself, walls that were higher and stronger than our family home. The irony was, as I pulled away, my career flourished. In counterintelligence, I found my calling. I rose through the ranks with a combination of sharp analytical skills and a relentless drive. By the age of 29, I was leading specialized operations that my family remained completely oblivious to. I met Cashin Reed while working on a complex multinational case. Our meeting wasn't in the field, as you might imagine, but at a cybersecurity conference where I was representing the agency. Cashin was not your typical tech entrepreneur. He had built Reed Technologies from a startup in his college dorm room into a global security behemoth, valued in the billions. His systems protected governments and major corporations from ever-evolving digital threats. Our connection was immediate and profound. Here was someone who saw me, truly saw me, without the distorting lens of my family's history. Our romance was a whirlwind, conducted in the stolen moments between my covert operations and his global business empire. "I've never met anyone like you," Cashin told me on our third date, as we walked along the Potomac at midnight. "You are extraordinary, Briona. I hope you know that." Those simple, sincere words offered more validation than I had ever received in a lifetime from my family. We were married 18 months later in a quiet, private ceremony witnessed by only 2 people. My closest co-worker, Evander, and Cashin's sister, Eliza. Our choice to keep our marriage a secret wasn't just about security protocols. It was my deliberate decision to protect this one precious part of my life from my family's toxicity. For 3 years, we built a life together while maintaining our separate public identities. Cashin continued to travel extensively, and my career at the FBI progressed until I was appointed as the agency's youngest deputy director of counterintelligence operations. This brings us back to my sister's wedding 6 months ago. The invitation arrived at my Boston apartment, embossed in gold and dripping with pretension. Isolde was marrying Leander Wellington IV, the heir to a banking dynasty. The evening was set to be the exact kind of opulent spectacle my parents adored. Cashin was in Tokyo, on the verge of closing a major security contract. "I can reschedule," he offered, seeing the hesitation on my face. "No," I insisted. "This is too important for Reed Tech. I can handle one afternoon." "I'll try to make it back for the reception," he promised. "Even if it's just for the end." And so, I found myself driving alone to the Fairmont Copley Plaza Hotel, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach with each passing mile. I hadn't seen most of my family in nearly 2 years. My sleek black Audi, one of the few luxuries I allowed myself, pulled up to the valet. I checked my reflection one last time. An elegant emerald green dress, subtle diamond studs which were a gift from Cashin, and my hair styled in a classic chignon. I looked successful, poised, untouchable. I just wished I felt that way on the inside. The Fairmont's grand ballroom had been transformed into a floral wonderland for Isolde's wedding. White orchids and roses cascaded from crystal chandeliers. It was precisely the kind of extravagant display my parents had always dreamed of. I presented my invitation to an usher, who scanned his list with a faint grimace. "Miss Campbell, we have you at table 19. Not the family table, of course. I nodded politely, having expected nothing less. My cousin Rebecca spotted me first, her eyes widening in surprise before settling into a practiced smile. "Briona, what a surprise! We weren't sure you'd make it." Her gaze flickered to my empty side. "And you came alone." "I did," I said, offering no further explanation. "How brave of you," she replied, her voice thick with false sympathy. "After what happened with that professor you were dating. What was his name? Mom said it was just devastating when he left you for his teaching assistant." It was a complete fabrication. I had never dated a professor, let alone been dumped by one. But this was a classic Campbell family tactic, creating narratives that cast me as a perpetual failure. "Your memory must be confusing me with someone else," I replied calmly. More relatives descended, and the interactions followed a similar pattern. Aunt Vivian remarked on my practical haircut, suggesting it was sensible for a woman in my situation to forego more fashionable styles. Uncle Harold asked loudly if I was still pushing papers for the government, and whether I'd considered a career change, since those jobs never paid well enough to attract a decent husband. Tiffany, Isolda's maid of honor, approached with air kisses that deliberately missed my cheeks. "Brionna, darling, it's been ages. I love the dress. Is that from that outlet mall you always find such bargains at?" She didn't wait for an answer. "Isolda was just saying she wasn't sure you'd come. You know, since you missed the bridal shower, the bachelorette weekend, and the rehearsal dinner." Each of those events had conflicted with critical operations I could not possibly disclose. I had sent extravagant gifts with heartfelt notes. "Work commitments," I explained simply. "Right, your mysterious government job." She made air quotes around the word mysterious. "Leander's cousin works for the State Department. He says those administrative roles can be so demanding." I just smiled, content to let them believe I was a glorified clerk. The truth would have stunned them into silence, but that revelation wasn't mine to share just yet. My mother appeared, resplendent in a pale blue designer gown that likely cost more than my substantial monthly salary. "Brionna, you made it." Her tone implied I had completed a perilous journey instead of a simple drive across town. "Your sister was so worried you wouldn't show up again." "I wouldn't miss Isolda's wedding," I said. Her eyes performed a rapid scan, searching for flaws in my appearance. Finding none, she settled on, "That color rather washes you out." Isolda, now officially Mrs. Wellington, made her grand entrance to the reception on the arm of her banker husband. She was undeniably breathtaking in a custom Vera Wang gown with a cathedral-length train. My father beamed with pride, looking at Isolda as if she were the sun and moon combined. I couldn't recall him ever looking at me that way. The maitre d' led me to table 19, which was so far from the head family table that I practically needed binoculars to see them. I was seated with distant cousins, my mother's old college roommate, and a few elderly relatives who couldn't quite place me. "Are you one of the Wellington girls?" A hard-of-hearing gray-tant squinted at me over her thick spectacles. "No, I'm Robert and Patricia's daughter," I clarified. "Isolda's older sister." Her face registered genuine surprise. "Oh, I didn't realize they had another one." Even after all these years, that stung more than it should have. Dinner progressed through a series of elaborate courses, with champagne flowing freely. From my distant perch, I watched my family hold court at the head table, laughing and celebrating without a single glance in my direction. The official family photos had, of course, been taken earlier. During her maid of honor speech, Tiffany spoke emotionally about growing up with Isolda, who was like the sister she never had, a pointed erasure of my existence. The best man joked about Leander joining the Campbell dynasty and how he was marrying up to the Campbell golden child. I maintained my composure through it all, sipping water to keep a clear head. Cashin had texted an hour before. "Landing shortly. Traffic from Logan is heavy." When the dancing started, I attempted to join a circle of cousins, but they subtly closed ranks, leaving me on the periphery. I retreated to a quiet corner, checking my watch. Cashin would be here soon, just a little longer. My mother approached, a champagne flute in her hand. "You could at least pretend to be enjoying yourself," she hissed. "Your constant sulking is becoming a topic of conversation." "I'm not sulking, Mother. I'm observing." "Well, observe with a smile on your face. The Wellingtons are important people. Your sister has made a brilliant match. Don't you dare embarrass us." As if I were the source of embarrassment in this scenario. "The least you could have done was bring a date," she continued. "Everyone is asking why you're here alone." I didn't bother explaining that my husband was worth more than the entire Wellington family fortune combined. That reveal was coming soon enough. As the reception hit its peak, my father tapped his crystal glass for attention. The crowd quieted as he took center stage in front of a massive ice sculpture. "Today," he began, his voice carrying the trained projection of a courtroom lawyer, "is the proudest day of my life. My beautiful Isolde has made a match that exceeds even a father's wildest dreams." A smattering of appreciative laughter followed. "Leander," he continued, turning to my new brother-in-law, "you are gaining not just a wife, but entry into a family that values excellence and achievement above all else." He raised his glass higher. "To Isolde, who has never once been a disappointment to us. From her first steps to her graduation from Juilliard with highest honors and her work with her humanitarian foundation, she has been a constant source of pride." My chest tightened, not because I expected a mention, I knew better, but because of the blatant, implicit comparison. Isolde had never disappointed them. The unspoken conclusion hung heavy in the air. As he went on, extolling Isolde's virtues, I slipped quietly towards the terrace doors. I needed air space, a moment to regroup before Cashin arrived. The evening sun was setting over the hotel's famous courtyard fountain, casting a golden light on the rippling water. I was almost at the sanctuary of the terrace when my father's voice boomed from behind me. "Leaving so soon, Briona?" I turned slowly. He stood 10 feet away, microphone still in hand, the entire reception hall now staring in our direction. My mother and Isolde flanked him, identical expressions of disdain on their perfect faces. "Just getting some fresh air," I said, keeping my voice level. "Running away, classic Briona," he sneered, the microphone amplifying his words for everyone to hear. "Disappearing when family obligations become inconvenient." A hot flush crept up my neck. "That's not fair." His voice adopted the cross-examination tone I knew from my childhood. "You've missed half the wedding events. You show up alone without even the decency to bring a +1. The room had gone completely silent. "I'm sorry if my being here alone bothers you," I said softly. "She couldn't even find a date," my father announced to the room, drawing a wave of uncomfortable laughter. 32 years old and no prospects. Meanwhile, her sister has landed one of the most eligible bachelors in Boston. His theatricality earned another round of laughter. "Dad," I murmured, "this isn't the time or the place." "It's exactly the time and place," he shot back, striding towards me. "This is a celebration of success, of family accomplishment, something you would know nothing about." Each word was a carefully aimed dart, designed to pierce through years of my carefully built armor. I glanced at my mother and sister, hoping for any sign of intervention. They just watched, my mother with a rigid smile, Isolde with poorly concealed glee. "Do you think we don't know why you're really alone? hiding behind that so-called mystery government job," my father continued. "You've always been jealous of your sister's success, always the disappointment, always the failure." "Dad, please stop," I pleaded, acutely aware of the hundreds of eyes fixed on us. "Stop what? Telling the truth that you've never measured up and that you're an embarrassment to the Campbell name." His voice rose with each word, and something inside me finally snapped. Not to anger, but to a strange, calm clarity. "You have no idea who I am," I said quietly. "I know exactly who you are," he snarled. And then it happened. His hands were on my shoulders, a hard, forceful shove that took me completely by surprise. I stumbled backward, my arms flailing, but there was nothing to catch myself on. There was a split second of weightlessness, and then the shocking, icy cold as I plunged backward into the courtyard fountain. Water surged around me. My meticulously styled hair collapsed. My silk dress billowed and then clung to my body, and I knew my makeup was running in streaks down my face. The physical shock was nothing compared to the psychic blow of realizing my own father had just publicly humiliated me in this way. The crowd's reaction came in stages. First, shocked gasps, then uncertain titters. Finally, it erupted into full-throated laughter, punctuated by scattered applause. Someone wolf whistled. Another voice shouted, "Wet t-shirt contest after the garter toss." More laughter. I pushed myself up, water streaming from my ruined dress. My heels slipped on the fountain's slick bottom as I regained my footing. Through dripping strands of hair, I saw my father's look of triumph, my mother's hand covering a smirk, and my sister's undisguised delight. The photographer's flash went off again and again, capturing my humiliation for posterity. This would be in the wedding album, a story to be told at future family gatherings, another chapter in the saga of Briona, the failure. But in that cold water, something unexpected happened. As the shock jolted my system, I realized I was done. I stood to my full height in the fountain, water cascading off my designer dress. I pushed back my soaked hair and looked directly at my father. "Remember this moment," I said, my voice carrying across the now-quiet courtyard. It wasn't a shout, not emotional, but clear and precise. My father's smile faltered. Something in my tone must have registered because a flicker of unease crossed his face. "Remember exactly how you treated me," I continued, taking a slow step toward the fountain's edge. "Remember the choices you made today. Remember what you did to your daughter, because I guarantee you, I will." I climbed out of the fountain with as much dignity as my sodden state would allow. A stunned silence had fallen over the crowd. Even my father seemed at a loss for words. I recalled a similar public humiliation at my high school graduation, when my father had interrupted my valedictorian speech to comment loudly that memorization was always Briona's only real talent. The audience had laughed then, too. And I had shrunk, made myself smaller. Not this time. I walked through the parted crowd, water dripping with every step, leaving a dark trail on the expensive carpet. No one stopped me. No one offered a hand. No one said a word. And strangely, I was perfectly fine with that. For the first time in my life, I needed nothing from any of them. When I pushed through the doors of the Fairmont's Ladies' Lounge, I caught my reflection in the ornate, gold-framed mirror. Mascara streaks, hair plastered to my scalp, the emerald dress now a dark, saturated forest green. But I didn't feel defeated. I felt strangely liberated. My clutch, thankfully, I'd left at table 19 before the fountain incident. I retrieved it from a concerned-looking, distant relative who had guarded it for me, and I returned to the restroom to text Cashin. "How close are you?" His reply was instantaneous. 20 minutes out, hitting traffic. Is everything okay?" I paused before typing. "Dad pushed me into the fountain in front of everyone." The 3 dots appeared immediately, vanished, then reappeared. Finally, "I'm coming, 10 minutes." Cashin was always 10 steps ahead, always protecting what was his, which included me. I didn't know at the time that he had already dispatched a security detail ahead of him. The restroom door swung open and a young woman entered. One of Leander's relatives, I guessed. She stopped short when she saw me. "Oh my God, are you all right?" "I'm fine," I said, straightening my spine. "Just a little wet." She hovered, unsure. "Everyone's talking about what happened. That was a truly awful thing for your father to do." Her unexpected kindness almost broke my composure. "Thank you for saying that. I have a spare dress in my car," she offered. "It might be a little big, but—" "That's very kind, but I have a change of clothes in my car." A professional habit. Always have a contingency plan. "Could you walk with me to the valet? I'd rather not go back through the crowd alone." "Of course," she said. "My name is Maurice, by the way." Leander's step-cousin from his mom's second marriage. The Wellington family black sheep, basically. "Briona," I replied, offering a dripping hand. "The Campbell family scapegoat." "A pleasure to meet you," she said with a genuine laugh. That small moment of human connection steadied me. I retrieved my backup outfit from the trunk of my Audi, a simple black sheath dress and flats I kept for emergencies. 10 minutes later, in an adjacent restroom, I had transformed myself from a drowned rat into someone who looked respectably professional. As I applied fresh makeup, I thought about my real life, the one my family knew nothing about. I had graduated from Quantico, top of my class. I had led operations that saved American lives. I had earned the respect of hardened field agents and Washington officials. I had married a brilliant, kind man who valued me for exactly who I was. None of that validation came from the people celebrating in the ballroom, and maybe that was the point. True self-worth is found far away from the distorted funhouse mirrors of a toxic family. I checked my watch. Cashin would be here any minute. For the first time, I was ready to drop the curtain on our separate lives. Not to impress my family, that ship had sailed and sunk in the fountain with me, but because I was done making myself small to keep them comfortable. My phone buzzed. A text from Cashin. "In position." I took a deep breath, smoothed down my new dress, and walked back towards the reception, head held high, shoulders back. Maurice, who had returned to her table, gave me an encouraging thumbs up as I passed. The party had resumed in my absence. The dance floor was full, the bar was bustling, the cake was about to be cut. No one noticed me at first, which allowed me to position myself strategically near the main entrance. I saw my mother first, holding court with a group of her socialite friends, gesturing dramatically. As I drew closer, I could hear her words. "It's always been a struggle. We've tried everything with her, absolutely everything. The best schools, the best therapists. Some people just refuse to thrive." "Such a shame," one of her friends clucked sympathetically. "Especially with Isolde being so accomplished. Same parents, same upbringing. Genetics are a funny thing." My mother sighed theatrically. "Robert and I have simply come to accept that Briona will never." She trailed off as she saw me standing there, no longer the weeping mess she assumed was hiding in a bathroom. "Briona," she recovered quickly. "You're dry. Yes, Mother, I keep a spare outfit on hand, one of many professional habits. Her friends exchanged awkward glances before making hasty excuses to refill their drinks. Was humiliating me part of the wedding schedule, or did Dad improvise that part? I asked quietly. Don't be so dramatic, she snapped. You were trying to slink away, as usual. Your father simply lost his patience with your antisocial behavior. Pushing your adult daughter into a fountain is not a normal response to perceived antisocial behavior. Perhaps if you had brought a date, made an effort, tried to participate in your sister's happiness instead of making everything about your mysterious job and your perpetually busy schedule, things would have been different. I studied my mother's face, searching for a flicker of the maternal, protective instinct that was supposed to be there. I found nothing but resentment that I had spoiled her narrative. You know what's interesting, Mother? I have never, not once, made anything about me. In fact, I've spent my entire life trying to take up as little space in this family as possible, and it still wasn't enough. A commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. The distinct sound of several car doors slamming in succession. The appearance of two men in immaculate suits conducting a quiet, professional security sweep of the entrance. My mother frowned. What is this? Did the Wellingtons hire more security without telling us? I glanced at my watch. Right on time, I said. A sleek black Maybach had pulled up, flanked by two equally imposing security vehicles. The chatter in the room died down as all eyes turned to the entrance. The band seemed to fade into the background. My own heart hammered against my ribs, despite my calm exterior. Even after 3 years of marriage, Cashin still had that effect on me. And in about 60 seconds, my family was finally going to meet my husband. The massive ballroom doors were pushed open with authority. Two of Cashin's lead security men, Evander and Dmitri, entered first. I recognized their watchful eyes, scanning the room with professional efficiency. They wore exquisite suits that couldn't quite conceal their military bearing. Whispers rippled through the room. My father, affronted, strode toward the security team. "Excuse me," he said, puffing out his chest. "This is a private function. If you're looking for the corporate conference, that's in the West Wing." Evander simply looked through him as if he were made of glass. Dmitri touched his earpiece and spoke quietly. "Perimeter secure. Principal proceeding." And then Cashin walked in. My husband always had a commanding presence, but tonight he seemed to fill the entire doorway. At 6'2", with the broad shoulders of a lifelong swimmer, he wore a custom Tom Ford suit that screamed quiet wealth and power. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd just come from the rooftop helipad. He had a jawline that could cut glass, but it was his eyes that always captivated me. They were a startling blue, laser-focused, and they swept the room in a single glance before they found me. When they did, his serious expression softened into a private smile meant only for me. He moved through the parting crowd with the innate confidence of a man who has never questioned his right to be anywhere. People instinctively stepped back, creating a clear path directly to where I stood. I was vaguely aware of my mother beside me, her body going rigid as she realized this formidable man was walking straight toward us. Behind him, 4 more security personnel had entered, taking up discreet positions around the room's perimeter. "Briona," Cashin said as he reached me, his voice a warm baritone that resonated in the now silent room. He took both my hands in his, rubbing his thumbs over my knuckles in our private gesture of reassurance. "Sorry I'm late." "You're right on time," I replied, a profound sense of calm settling over me for the first time all day. He leaned down and kissed me. Not a showy display, but a real, tender greeting between husband and wife. He kept a protective hand on the small of my back as he turned to face my mother. "Mrs. Campbell," he said, his tone polite but devoid of warmth. "I'm Cashin Reed, Briona's husband." My mother's face went through a stunning series of expressions: shock, disbelief, calculation, and finally a strained attempt at a welcoming smile. "Husband," she squeaked, her voice an octave higher than usual. But Briona never said. 3 years next month, Cashin supplied calmly. "We prefer to keep our private life private." For security reasons. My father had shouldered his way through the crowd to stand beside my mother, his face flushed with either anger or embarrassment. Maybe both. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his gaze flicking between me and Cashin. "Is this some kind of prank? Hiring actors and security to make a scene at your sister's wedding? This is a new low, even for you, Briona." Cashin's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Only someone who knew him as well as I did would see the dangerous glint in his eyes. "Mr. Campbell," he said, his voice deceptively mild. "I am Cashin Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies. Your daughter and I have been married for almost 3 years." My father's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Reed Technologies. It was a globally recognized name, a multi-billion-dollar security empire. Even my tech-illiterate father would know it. That's not possible," he finally stammered. "We would have known." "Would you have?" Cashin asked, his tone one of genuine curiosity. "When was the last time you showed any real interest in Briona's life?" "From what I've witnessed tonight, and from what she has shared over the years, your interest seems to extend only to criticizing her choices, not to understanding them." My sister had now joined the tableau, her white gown making her look like a ghost drifting through the stunned guests. Leander was at her side, his expression a mixture of confusion and intrigue. "What is going on?" Isolde demanded. "Who are these people?" "Apparently," my mother whispered, "your sister has a husband." "That's ridiculous," Isolde scoffed. "She's making this up to get attention, on my wedding day." Cashin's arm tightened around my waist, not possessively, but in a show of solid support. "Mrs. Wellington, congratulations on your marriage." "I do apologize for missing the ceremony. International business required me to be in Tokyo until a few hours ago." His impeccable manners were a stark contrast to Isolde's petulance. She flushed, looking from Cashin to the security team to the rapt audience of wedding guests. "Is this some kind of joke?" my father repeated, his voice regaining some of its bluster. "You expect us to believe that our Briona, secretly married a billionaire tech CEO," a voice called from the back. It was one of Leander's friends, clearly having just Googled Cashin on his phone. "Holy crap, that's really Cashin Reed. Cover of Forbes last month. Net worth estimated at $12 billion. A collective gasp went through the room. My mother swayed, reaching for the back of a chair for support. "I don't understand," she murmured. "Why wouldn't you tell us?" For the first time, the question seemed genuine, not accusatory. I almost felt sorry for her. "When have you ever wanted to hear about my successes, Mother?" I asked gently. "When have you ever celebrated anything about me that wasn't a direct comparison to Isolde?" "As for me," Cashin added smoothly, "I was looking forward to meeting the family Briona has told me so much about. Though I must admit, after watching your behavior earlier this evening, I find myself rather—" He paused, choosing his words with deliberate care, disappointed. My father's face darkened. "Now you listen here, young man." "No, Mr. Campbell," Cashin interrupted, his voice turning to ice. You listen. I was on the terrace. I watched you publicly humiliate your daughter. I saw you push her into that fountain. I heard the things you said. The blood drained from my father's face. Under normal circumstances, Cashin continued, an assault like that would have immediate legal and physical consequences. My security team was ready to intervene. Breonna signaled them to stand down. That is the kind of woman your daughter is. Even after your despicable display, her first instinct was to avoid making a scene at her sister's wedding. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even the kitchen staff had stopped moving. Fortunately for you, Cashin went on, my wife is a better person than I am. Because I assure you, if anyone ever lays a hand on her like that again, my response will not be nearly so restrained. The threat, delivered in the most polite tone imaginable, hung in the air like a storm cloud. As if on cue, the ballroom doors opened again. Two people in crisp business attire entered, their bearing giving them away before I even saw their faces. Evander and Sophia, two of my most trusted agents from the Bureau. They walked with purpose, stopping a respectful distance from where Cashin and I stood with my family. Director Campbell, Sophia said formally, using my official title. My apologies for the interruption, but we have a situation that requires your immediate authorization. The title hung in the air for a beat before the whispers started. Director, did she say Director Campbell? Director of what? My father's confusion was almost comical. Director of what? Some little government records office. Cashin's smile was razor-thin. Your daughter, Mr. Campbell, is the youngest deputy director of counterintelligence operations in the history of the FBI. Her work has saved countless American lives and has earned her the highest security clearances this country can bestow. More gasps. More frantic whispers. My mother looked as if she was about to faint for real. Isolde stepped forward, her bridal glow replaced by a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. That's impossible. Breonna is just. Just what, Isolde? I asked calmly. Just your disappointing older sister, just the family scapegoat, just the perpetual failure. She had no answer. The Breonna Campbell I know, Cashin stated, his voice carrying effortlessly across the silent room, is brilliant, brave, and formidable. She commands the respect of hardened field agents and the highest officials in our government. She makes decisions every day that impact national security. He turned his gaze directly on my father. And for some reason I cannot fathom, she still cared enough for your approval to come to this wedding, knowing full well how you would treat her. My father looked as if he had aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. The blustering, confident attorney was gone, replaced by a confused old man struggling to reconcile his lifelong narrative with this new reality. Why didn't you tell us? He asked, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. Would you have believed me? I replied simply. Or would you have found a way to diminish this, too? His silence was answer enough. Sophia stepped forward with a secured tablet. Director, I'm sorry to press, but we need your authorization on this operation. I took the tablet, scanned the data, and made a decision in seconds. Proceed with option 2, but I want enhanced surveillance on the secondary target. I'll call in for a full brief in 20 minutes. Yes, ma'am, Sophia said, taking the tablet back. The professional exchange took less than 30 seconds, but its impact on the room was seismic. This wasn't an act. This wasn't some elaborate ruse. This was real authority, real responsibility, wielded with casual confidence. Cashin checked his watch. We should go. The helicopter is waiting, and the Tokyo team is on standby for that video conference at 9. I nodded, then turned to face my stunned family one last time. Congratulations on your wedding, Isolde. I wish you and Leander every happiness. My sister seemed incapable of speech. Leander, to his credit, stepped forward and offered a hand to Cashin. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Reed. And you, Director Campbell. I hope we'll have the chance to get to know you both better. His sincerity was unexpected and genuinely touching. I shook his hand warmly. I'd like that, Leander. My parents remained frozen, the rubble of their carefully constructed narrative lying at their feet. Cashin addressed them with perfect civility. Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, thank you for the invitation. My apologies again for missing the ceremony. My father finally found his voice. Brionna, wait, we need to. To talk about this, we're your parents. We've always wanted what's best for you. We've always been proud of you. The blatant attempt to rewrite history might have worked on the old me. Not anymore. No, Dad, I said gently but firmly. You haven't, but that's okay. I don't need you to be proud of me anymore. And with that, Cashin and I turned and walked out of the ballroom, my security team falling into formation around us. Behind us, the whispers erupted into a roar of exclamation. The Campbell family story would never be the same, and neither would I. The sleek black helicopter was waiting on the Fairmont's rooftop helipad, its blades already beginning their slow, powerful rotation. As we walked towards it, flanked by security, I felt a strange sense of lightness. It was as if decades of familial baggage had simply evaporated in that ballroom, leaving behind nothing but the shattered illusions of my parents. Are you okay? Cashin asked, his voice close to my ear to be heard over the rising whine of the rotors. Surprisingly, I said, I'm better than okay. Before we could board, Sophia approached us, her expression serious. Director, there's been a development. The ambassador is requesting your presence at the embassy, effective immediately. The surveillance package picked up some anomalous signals. Cashin looked at me with concern. This was not part of the evening's script. Is this real or performance art? I asked Sophia quietly. Unfortunately real, she confirmed. Evander is already interfacing with the field team. It's time-sensitive. I nodded, shifting fully into professional mode. Reroute the chopper to the embassy. Alert the duty analyst team. I want a full brief ready for me when I land. Sophia confirmed it was already done. Cashin touched my arm. Go, I'll meet you there. This seamless adaptation to crisis was one of the cornerstones of our marriage. Two high-stakes careers could have easily clashed, but instead of resenting each other's responsibilities, we supported them. As we turned back toward the roof access door, intending to descend and exit through the hotel's secure private entrance, our path was blocked. My mother stood there, slightly out of breath, having apparently run up several flights of stairs. Her perfect coiffure was slightly askew, and her flawless makeup couldn't quite hide the turmoil in her eyes. Brionna, she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. You can't just leave like this. We need to talk. I glanced at Sophia, who gave a subtle nod and stepped back to give us a moment of privacy. I have a work emergency, Mother. National security doesn't wait for family debriefings. National security, she repeated, as if hearing the words for the first time. It's true, then, what they said. You're a director at the FBI. Deputy Director of Counterintelligence Operations, I confirmed. For the last 18 months. Before that, Assistant Director for 3 years. She seemed to be trying to reconcile this new information with the image of me she had held for 3 decades. But the secrecy, why didn't you tell us? We would have been so proud. Would you have been? I finished for her. Or would you have found a way to diminish it, to compare it unfavorably to something Isolde was doing, to suggest I only got the job through some connection and not on my own merit? Her flinch told me I'd hit the mark. And the marriage, she pressed on. 3 years, he said. 3 years you've been married to one of the wealthiest men in the country and you never said a word. I noted how she focused on Cashin's wealth above all his other remarkable qualities. Even now, her primary currency was status. Our marriage is private for several reasons, I explained patiently. Cashin's profile makes him a potential target. My work is classified. And frankly, Mother, I wanted one thing in my life that wasn't subject to the judgment of the Campbell family. The helicopter pilot signaled that it was time to go. The window was closing. I have to go, I said. There is a real national security situation developing. Will you come back? She asked, and for the first time in my adult life, I heard genuine vulnerability in her voice. To talk. To let us get to know you. The question floored me. I looked closely at her face, searching for the manipulative matriarch I had known my whole life. Instead, I saw confusion, hurt, and maybe, just maybe, a dawning awareness of all she had missed. I don't know, I answered honestly. That depends. Do you want to get to know the real me or just the successful version who finally meets with your approval? She had no ready answer for that. Think about it, I said. Think about whether you want a relationship based on who I am, not who you wanted me to be. I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me one last time. Your father, he never should have done that, she said softly. What he did tonight was wrong, unforgivable. It wasn't an apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd ever received from her. Thank you for saying that, I said. I have to go. As Cashin and I boarded the chopper, I glanced back and saw my mother still standing there, a small, solitary figure against the vast Boston skyline. For the first time, I didn't see the intimidating tyrant of my childhood, but a woman who had built her entire identity on appearance and social standing, now facing the collapse of her carefully constructed world. I felt an unexpected pang of pity. The situation at the embassy turned out to be real but manageable. Encrypted communications had indicated a potential security breach, which my team neutralized within 2 hours. By 11 p.m., Cashin and I were finally alone in our penthouse overlooking the Charles River. Some wedding reception, he said, loosening his tie as we stood on the balcony. The city lights glittered on the water, a tapestry of shimmering jewels. Not exactly how I pictured introducing you to the family, I admitted, kicking off my shoes. I thought it went rather well, actually, he said with a wry smile. The look on your father's face when Evander called you director was worth the price of admission. I laughed in spite of myself. That was pretty satisfying. Your mother followed you all the way up to the roof, he observed. That seems significant. I'm not sure what it means yet, I said. Honestly, 32 years of conditioning doesn't just vanish in one evening. No, he agreed, but a seismic event can sometimes create an opening for change. He drew me gently into his arms. Whatever you decide to do about them, I'm with you. If you want to explore a reconciliation, I'll support you. If you want to keep your distance, I'll support you. This was what real love felt like, not the conditional approval I'd spent decades chasing from my family, but unconditional support, regardless of the outcome. Did you see Leander's face when he realized who you were? I asked, changing the subject. I think he was mentally calculating how to get you to invest in his hedge fund. Cashin chuckled. He seemed like the only decent one of the lot. He recognized your title and showed the proper respect. I noticed that too, I admitted. Maybe Isolde chose better than I gave her credit for. My phone buzzed with a text. I assumed it was work, but I saw the name of my cousin, Mari's. OMG, the family is in total meltdown since you left. Dad keeps saying it must be a mistake. Mom is weirdly quiet. Isolde locked herself in the bridal suite. Also, I Googled your husband and holy crap. Also, I'm sorry they treated you like that for so long. Let's get a drink sometime. Signed, your new favorite cousin. I showed the text to Cashin, who raised an eyebrow. New favorite cousin. She was kind to me after the fountain, I explained. Before you got there. Offered me a dress, helped me avoid the crowd. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot. Sometimes allies show up in the most unexpected places, he remarked. Over the next hour, my phone began to light up with messages from relatives who had never contacted me before. Distant aunts suddenly remembered my birthday. Second cousins wanted to do lunch. My father sent a stilted, formal text, requesting a meeting to discuss recent developments at your earliest convenience. I silenced the phone and put it aside. They can wait. They're not reaching out to me, I told Cashin as we got ready for bed. They're reaching out to Director Campbell, wife of billionaire Cashin Reed, not to the person I actually am. Does that surprise you? He asked gently. No, I admitted, but it does make things very, very clear. As I fell asleep in the safety and comfort of our home, I realized the events of the day hadn't given me a family. I'd had one all along. Cashin, my trusted team at the bureau, the friends who valued me for me. The family I had chosen, not the one I was born into. And as it turned out, that made all the difference. 3 weeks after my sister's wedding, Cashin and I sat in our favorite corner at Thinking Cup on Newberry Street. Despite our combined net worth and public profiles, we cherished these small pockets of normalcy. Good coffee, quiet conversation, and the anonymous pleasure of people watching. Your mother called again yesterday, Cashin said, swirling his Americano. That's the 3rd time this week. I nodded, watching the autumn rush of pedestrians pass the window. The trees along Commonwealth Avenue were painted in brilliant shades of red and gold. She left another voicemail, an invitation for Sunday dinner. Are you considering it? His tone was neutral, offering neither encouragement nor dissent. I don't know, I admitted. A part of me thought it was all a calculated performance. But there had been glimmers, small, hesitant moments of something that felt like genuine change. My father, in one brief phone call, had asked intelligent questions about a new cybersecurity initiative Cashin's company was rolling out for federal agencies. My mother had sent a photo of a box she'd found, filled with my childhood achievements, debate trophies, academic awards, science fair medals, proof that perhaps she had been paying more attention than she let on. The most startling development had come from Isolde, who had asked to speak with me privately. In the garden where we'd played as children, my sister struggled with words that did not come easily to her. I didn't know, she finally said, about your job, your husband, your life. You never asked, I pointed out, not unkindly. I know, she twisted her new wedding band nervously. I think I liked being the favorite. It was easier not to question it. Her honesty was disarming. Leander says I need to explore why I felt so threatened by your success, she continued. Even before I knew about all this. She made a vague gesture that encompassed my career, my marriage, my entire world. He thinks we could both benefit from family counseling. I looked at my sister, truly looked at her for maybe the first time in years. Beneath the polished exterior, I saw insecurity and a flicker of fear. Being the golden child, it turned out, came with its own impossible pressures. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice cautious. "Not right away, but eventually." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an opening. A tiny crack in the fortress I had built around my heart, where my family was concerned. The months that followed were a slow, imperfect journey. The family dinners became a weekly occurrence, gradually becoming less tense. My parents learned to respect the boundaries I set. My father, after initial resistance, started attending anger management therapy and became more self-aware. My mother and I began taking tentative mother-daughter outings that were an awkward mix of stilted conversation and moments of genuine laughter. Healing wasn't a straight line. There were setbacks, moments when old habits resurfaced, a flash of my father's temper, a critical comment from my mother. But for the first time, there was accountability, a willingness to acknowledge the hurt and make an effort to repair it. The most profound change, however, happened not in my family, but within me. My sense of self-worth was no longer tied to their approval. I no longer minimized my achievements to make others comfortable. I no longer accepted disrespect as the price of admission. 1 year after the infamous wedding, Cashin and I hosted a party at our home. It wasn't just for my immediate family, but for the people who had formed my true support system over the years. My colleagues from the FBI, Cashin's sister and her family, friends who had seen me through everything, Mari's and her new boyfriend, and even a few extended family members who had reached out with genuine warmth and curiosity. As I looked around the room at this eclectic mix of people, this chosen family, interwoven with the family of my birth, I had a moment of profound realization. Family is so much more than shared DNA. It's about who shows up. It's about who sees you clearly and loves you anyway. It's about who celebrates your wins without envy and supports you through your failures without judgment. Sometimes those people share your bloodline, and very often they don't. The magic is in learning to stop forcing a connection where one doesn't exist, and instead, nurturing the ones that bring mutual joy and growth. Standing in our kitchen, preparing to bring out dessert, I felt Cashin's arms wrap around me from behind. "Happy?" he asked simply. I leaned back into his embrace, looking through the doorway at my father talking animatedly with Evander about fly fishing, my mother showing Mari's photos on her phone, and Isolde letting out a peal of laughter at something Leander had said. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated, but it was real in a way it had never been before. "Yes," I said, and I meant it. "I am." If you are watching this and have struggled with a toxic family dynamic, I want you to know that your worth is not determined by those who refuse to see it. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is an essential act of self-preservation. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is create space until a true willingness to change emerges. Have you ever seen a family relationship transform after setting firm boundaries? Or have you found your peace by building a family of your own choosing? Please share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.